I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Cadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media here on Patriots Press Pass, an emergency quick hitter of Patriots Daily. The first Patriots Daily we've done in quite some time where we're not actually sitting next to each other at Gillette Stadium. We're back over the computer a little bit. But we have some breaking news, some breaking Patriots news, as according to Adam Schefter, the Patriots have another extension in place. They are signing standout defensive tackle Davon Godchaux to a 2-year extension worth upwards of $21 million, and that includes $16.5 million guaranteed. Quick reminder, we're powered by Game Time. Head over to Game Time. Use code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply there. So the Godchaux contract comes at the heels of his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, and I believe his brother, Jason Rosenhaus, showing up at Patriots training camp this week amid a contract dispute between Godchaux and the team. Godchaux has been practicing. He has returned his end of the bargain, if you will, unlike some other people who we'll get to at the end of this podcast. But Godchaux, in good faith, has been around the team, and he gets his money now. He had been holding out. He talked last week, said that he wanted to be paid his worth, said he wanted more guaranteed money. And that's what he gets in this deal, $16.5 million, like I said, guaranteed. So, Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you. A lot to get to here with Godchaux's contract. But first and foremost, what do you make of the deal, and what does it mean for the team overall?
Yeah, it's actually less than Grover Stewart's deal. And Grover Stewart was one of the players that Godchaux mentioned while speaking to the media. He kind of sees himself in a similar vein too. Now, Godchaux doesn't give you as much pass rush, and that was one of my issues. He also mentioned Dalvin Tomlinson for the Browns, who's a much better pass rusher. Grover Stewart's like fine for a nose tackle, but Godchaux, no offense to him, is almost a complete non-factor in that area. So it does make sense. I think this is the team-friendly, player-friendly deal that they've been trying to strike, and that, I think we were all hoping they would find some way to get to, because Davon Godchaux is one of the best nose tackles in the NFL. He's a great space eater. He's put on weight since joining the Patriots, which has helped him a lot in that regard. He mentioned in a tweet during, the break when all this was still up in the air that he wants to retire a Patriot, but he also wants to get paid his worth. And he is the key to this 3-4 system. We weren't really sure if they were going to give him the money he wanted, much less sign him to an extension, because we saw Lawrence Guy and the Patriots part ways. The team has mentioned they want to be better in terms of pass rush. So we were on the outside thinking, okay, maybe this means that everyone on the defensive line needs to give you some kind of pass rush value, which is why we were speculating, okay, if that's the case, then sure, Daniel Ekwale, Jeremiah Farms, they may not be as good as run stuffers, but they give you that two-way ability. So at that point, it was like, yeah, maybe they don't sign Godchaux because of the age, because of how limited his skill set is in terms of not really giving you much pass rush. But I think this is a sign that they do still want to be stout against the run with this 3-4 defense. Godchaux mentioned he is the heart of it, because you need that space-eating nose tackle to help your linebackers make plays, even though obviously like Bentley and Tavai, even Sione Takitaki, these are guys who can eat blocks on their own and get off. But I think this is an indication, one, the Patriots continuing to reward the players who have done well in their system. And Godchaux, tip of the cap to him. He did have his brief hold-in during minicamp, but since then he missed one day of training camp due to, I believe Gerard Mayo said it was tightness. Yeah. Even though we didn't have lower body pads on the past 2 days since the pads have been introduced to the mix after that acclimation period, he's been active. He's been out there, full participant. So good for him, staying professional. Apparently, we spoke to Alex Barth about agents at practice. And is that a normal thing? Because it did seem distraction-y considering the whole temper of the day. But he said that is something that's happened in the past. So it wasn't like, he was making a fuss or anything. I think that was just part of the process. And it seemed like a good omen when we saw the Rosenhaus brothers at practice. So now we know he's locked in, and hopefully he gets his dream and is able to retire a Patriot.
Of course. And I remember we were talking about that yesterday, like you said on the live show with the agent stuff. And Rosenhaus has been around for the last couple of years. I think he did a Trent Brown thing. Jacoby Myers was here. That obviously didn't get across the finish line, but that's a thing where he does sort of a training camp tour, and he is like the super agent of the NFL. He's like, you might not know, but Scott Boras is like that in the MLB, where he's like all over the place. He represents the top talent, right? And so he's around. He has connections. He knows people. He was really friendly with Bill Belichick. So that might have to do it as well, kind of relationships in the front office. But they obviously get it done. He gets more guarantees. But, you noted it, right? It's not close to really to Grover Stewart, to Tomlinson. there's still a gap there. And Andrew Callahan tweeted it as we talked about before, like this deal is outside the top 30 for highest paid interior defensive linemen. So it's team friendly and it helps out the Patriots. And it's also friendly to Godchaux, who gets the little pay bump, the pay bump he wanted too. So speaking of the defensive line and Christian Barmore, who with the unfortunate news earlier this week that he'll be out indefinitely with blood clots. There's sort of this narrative's not the right word, but this idea maybe that him being out sort of sped up the process for Davon Godchaux to get done. And we've talked about it, off camera and on camera as well, where I know you don't think it necessarily the two have to totally go together because of the different roles they play. But at the end of the day, it's still a big body in the interior in the interior defensive line. So how do you think that might relate? And how do you think, schematically, the addition with Godchaux being back, does it have anything to do with Barmore? What are your thoughts on that?
So Rosenhaus was actually at training camp the day that Barmore's diagnosis happened. So I think the wheels are already turning on this, and they were really starting to make some headway there. That's one reason I don't think Barmore has a lot to do with it. Also, like you mentioned, they play different roles. So Davon Godchaux is your pure run-stopping nose tackle. He eats space, he gets off blocks and all that. And as we mentioned, doesn't really give you any pass rush. So in obvious passing situations, he's typically not on the field. Barmore is more of a true defensive tackle, like that 3 technique, 4 technique, who really lives in the B gap so he can get more one-on-one blocks and be able to attack the quarterback. And really just also the run, both things. Obviously, he really excelled as a run defender on top of being a pass rusher last year. And Barmore only really played nose tackle in those obvious pass rushing situations when Godchaux was off the field. Sometimes he mix in as a rotational kind of thing, like against the Jets, Godchaux went down, Equale went down as well, and you saw Barmore play more nose tackle, but that's not really where he lives. Now, our colleague Matt St. Jean did bring up a very good point that if you were to lose Barmore and you lost Godchaux, then you would have 2 starting defensive tackles who are really like 3rd or 4th string guys. That's not ideal. And that did, I think, make a lot of sense in terms of if you wanted to see, okay, maybe how did Barmore's situation play into that? I think that's where you'd want to look. But outside of that, I really think these are different. Again, with Rosenhaus's appearance and Barmore's diagnosis happening on the same day, they don't seem like they were relevant necessarily. But at the same time, Matt made a good point. And now you don't have to worry about having 2 guys on the interior who are no longer on the team. Now you at least know you've got the heart of your defense in terms of run stopping. And now Daniel Equale and Jeremiah Farms, Armon Watts, all those guys have a little bit less on their plate that they have to take on.
Yep. And so from one contract that does get across the finish line to one that is still very much in limbo, I get to talk drama, Patriots drama with Taylor Kyles once again. Let's get into the Matthew. Let's get into the Matthew. Yeah, let's get into the Matthew Judon saga. Because despite Wednesday being an off day for the Patriots and what we thought was going to be an off day for the Patriots Daily podcast, turns into an emergency show because not only is Godchaux's deal done, but Matthew Judon, there is a new wrinkle in his contract situation. Diana Rossini today reported that Judon obviously left practice and wasn't at the facility due to contract discrepancy. And she wrote that the Patriots had since offered him a contract. Matthew Judon then responds in a tweet to somebody and says, "They haven't offered me a contract." There it is right there. Thank you, Taylor. He says, "Yeah, they haven't. They're just trying to make me look bad," or something along those lines. Don't believe it. And then Rossini kind of backtracks and says, I think she deleted her original tweet, if that's correct.
Is it still there? I think it's still there. Let's see.
Okay, I thought I saw someone say she deleted it, but that could be wrong.
They're both still there.
Okay. So that's
so this is the original tweet that Diana sent.
Okay, and then she also says a few tweets later, if you want to pull it up, that they made offered revised contracts before camp, and they've yet to agree on a rework deal. So I don't know where that's at, but according to Judon, they have not since come with a new deal to him and actually offered it. Judon said on that podcast the other day that he's actually written up his own contract for the team. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts here.
Mike and Lenu.
Yeah. So we right, exactly. So we talked yesterday on the crossover episode, Taylor, and I know I gave you some shit where I basically was like, Alex asked what our percentages was, and you gave your percentage and then kind of went on a rant, and we were talking about, not a rant, I don't mean that in a bad way, but we were giving percentages on how much Judon's going to be on the team. So after this stuff, after other stuff I'm hearing, it doesn't look good to me. I think I might have said 50-50. At this point, I think it's closer to like 20-25%. I don't think this is going to end well. things just don't look good. They don't sound good. There's more fuel to the fire, especially hit that tweet, like him saying that the team's trying to make him look bad. It's just, it's all a mess right now. So that's my thoughts. What are yours on where we're at now with Judon and that whole situation?
Yeah, my rant, that's like the beauty of live broadcasting, where in the moment I was like, oh yeah, Trent Brown was a pretty bad situation. Someone who, really was pretty close to being insubordinate and then got rewarded. But then I thought about it even more, the beauty of not being live and actually getting to think things through a little more.
Right.
I was like, yeah, but they were pretty desperate. That was mid-season. And this is a new regime, and they really, you don't have Belichick where you can do stuff like that. And it looks bad, but at the end of the day, you're like, all right, I'm just going to trust what he does because he's leading the team. I'm back on my 30-40% because, like you said, it just looks really ugly. And I mean, people have criticized the Patriots for not getting this over the line before training camp. At least we know now that they did make an effort. They submitted offers and tried to find some way to get this done. But still, it's odd because Judon did participate early on in training camp. And then this hold-in kind of came out of nowhere. Now, but from the time we spoke to him to the time this happened, there was a gap. So maybe there was something that went down in between that kind of sparked this. But I still don't have a whole lot of confidence that Judon's going to be back. When Diana sent the report and said that they tried to make another offer, I was thinking, it was the feeling that I had was that still doesn't feel great because days after, this whole thing where there's a blow up and he talks to 3 high-ranking members of the organization and Gerard Mayo, Matt Groh, and Elliot Wolf, and then, has these animated conversations and is asked to leave twice.
Right.
I just don't think, even as impactful as he is, maybe they re-sign him and people forget because he plays so well. And it's just like, oh, yeah, remember all that crap that happened last summer? That was crazy. I just don't think for this organization. Like, Godchaux had his hold in, but he did it the way you're supposed to. Right. Didn't make a fuss about it. He did what Judon did and what Judon said he thought was trash. And now, this weird 180. So I don't know, man. I really do think Judon's an impact player, especially without Christian Barmore. Keon White has looked really great in training camp, but he hasn't been perfect. He hasn't been Judon. So I don't love the idea of completely leaning on him. I'd rather you had a Judon and then you let Keon White kind of come along, come into his own, take that year 2 jump. And then in 2025, you're maybe thinking, okay, we know Keon's locked in. Maybe they find some guarantees or whatever to make Judon happy this year and he tests free agency. But yeah, bottom line, I don't have a lot of faith this gets done just because of how ugly it got on that day in training camp. He wasn't even in the building yesterday. Right. I think that's a pretty obvious sign that they were not happy with how things went down, whatever decision it was. We even saw after practice. I don't know whether players were home and maybe it was normal, but he posted playing video games. Just like, come on, man. Like, I get it. Maybe you would be home at this point, but even still, it just was. It didn't look great.
It's a weird look. Yeah, him not showing up, him almost making it clear that he's not in the building, like that kind of stuff. I'm with you. It's not in a good place.
Over myself, but it's a weird. I'm not used to covering something like this, so it's a weird situation. But yeah, bottom line, I still don't think it gets done just because of how strange the situation.
No, I'm with you. It's clear that things aren't great. There is a clear gap in where these two stand, whether it's contract related, whether it's frankly how he's supposed to hold out. I think coaches and executives understand the business side as well, just like the players. Where okay, if you have to hold out, you don't want to get hurt, you want to get your money, blah, blah, blah. Like there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and players held out throughout the Belichick regime. And I think Bill understood that. And as you mentioned, Judon did it the right way last year. He did it how Judon's doing it, he did it how Godchaux's doing it this year, right? Like for him there was almost seems like there was no plan in place prior to him coming out to practice on Monday. It was just a real bizarre situation. And now there seems like there's clear animosity between the two sides, and Judon's speaking out on Twitter. So it's just, you're right. It's an odd situation and I don't know how it gets done. So we'll obviously see how it gets done, and we'll keep you posted here on Patriots Press Pass throughout all of it. So that's going to do it for our emergency Patriots Daily Patriots Press Pass episode here on the CLNS Media Network. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff. Head over to clnsmedia.com for all of our Patriots coverage. Me and Taylor will be back down in Foxborough on Thursday for a recap of day 7 of Patriots training camp. A lot to get to there. Drake May, see if he can bounce back, see what happens, obviously, along the defensive line. But for now, Davon Godchaux gets his contract, and Matthew Judon is still waiting on his. So until next time, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time. Peace, y'all.